action and make a difference through the ballot box and not through the bullet. You know, when elections are coming in Africa, it's part of our conflict, the sharing of this power. Because at the end is sharing the seat. That's the one, the men, our men, they know. This is how much I am going to have with my party. And in particular, when you see that it's about wealth, it's about countries that have resources, the sharing of this. So sometimes you need a movement, and the young people can do that, to say we don't want to come into conflict. We don't want to end up by being in war. We don't want it to see things changing the constitution. We don't want. If they say stand and say we don't want, and that is where you can build the alliance with the women's movement, because we are also there, some of us who say we don't want this. What we want is you go, you negotiate, you mediate, but bring us peace. So I think that's this accountability that our government have to, our politician, I'm not just saying government, but our politician, is to make them accountable as well. The young people can do it, even the business people, because the business are investing in our government. It's a big tool to say that no, we want accountability, but not only in the political side, but all the things that our government are doing. You sign in contract with them. You know, why not looking into some of those issues? Accountability to the people. So either politician, either NGOs, either private sector, let's contribute, a new citizen of Africa, and the young people can do it.
So you say hold them accountable. Now we have some tweets here. John Ube has been tweeting. He says he agrees with you that we do have a huge gap. This is taking us a little back to formal education, or to education itself. We have a huge gap in informal education. He wants to know, Kola, if you have a mentor. And he also, this is another person who wants to know if we can take the basic but good education to rural areas. I do know that Khumalo was talking about, you know, young girls who have not been absorbed, and so she cannot just sit and say that education is overrated. Kola identified formal and informal education, something that I think has also run through here. How do you think that we can take the good but basic education to rural areas, considering the use of technology? Who would like to go first at that? Kola?
Look, we should never take out the role of our mothers, our wives, away from anything you want to achieve around education, be it in the rural area or in the urban cities. Because the strength of what holds the fabric of the African society together is the woman. If you give our mothers in the rural area, in the cities, $100, you'll be amazed what they could transform that to, from the home to the children to any type of education. The connectivity of all this has got to be that stability from the home front.
So are you going to say start from the mothers?
Start from the mothers, because they are the controllers of the home that is created that African society.
Zamantungwa.
I think, you know, education in rural areas is still such an issue. I mean, sometimes, and it's not an issue that's actually isolated to education alone. Because, for example, if you look at, you want to build a school in the middle of the CAR, how do you even get the materials that you need to go there? And so there are organizations and NGOs that are finding innovative ways of being in those spaces. I mean, today we still have one too many people who are living under a tree within the continent. And I suppose those people are seeing the value in bringing education to people, irrespective of the fact that they don't have a physical desk or a classroom to learn from. And I suppose that's where we need to begin to have innovative solutions to the education problem on this continent. That is it feasible for us to necessarily want, you know, a classroom or a whole school built in every single area? And so, you know, some organizations are using, for example, technology to address spaces that don't have education in rural areas on the continent. And that's something that needs to be done. I think if anything, it's laudable that we're seeing the gap in certain parts of the continent that don't have education, and we're ensuring that we bring education. I think everyone would agree about the value of education, about how underutilized Africa's youth and African women in particular are, and that's probably why we're not being invested in. But I think here's a bigger picture that we're not quite looking into when we're looking at education. There was a short story that my older brother shared with me. He said there was the CEO and the CFO of a company are having a conversation. The CFO says, what if we invest in our people, so the people that are in the organization, and they leave us? And the CEO, he says, what if we don't invest in our people and they stay? And I think when you look at the education crisis and the skills gap in this continent, people are not going to have anywhere to go. And so you're going to end up having a continent that's not educated, that's not adequately skilled, and they'll stay. And so if anything, not just government creating enabling environments and building more schools and making sure that they reform their education system, companies themselves that are bringing in business onto the continent, or even African companies, need to invest in their people, need to invest in the communities of where their employees are working. And so a Kola, who heads up an organization and has workers, and maybe some of his workers come from rural parts of the country. What is he doing to make sure that extended family members of the people that work with him are adequately invested in, so that 20 years from now he has a bigger skills pool to choose from his company? It's in our best interest, not just as government or business, not just government but also business, to make sure that the skill gap widens. Because people aren't going to go to Europe, we're not going to go to the Americas, we're going to stay here. This is the next frontier, and we want to stay here. But you need to adequately invest in us and adequately invest in the education system. And it's not just a government solution. I think we've had a number of sessions in this forum that focus primarily on education. And one thing that's evident, and it won't just be at the World Economic Forum only, but in any forum, that the education crisis, and it's a global crisis, it's not just an African crisis, there isn't one solution to it. And so we need to find different ways, and already we are. And young people, mind you, are also finding different ways of addressing this particular crisis. And so if anything, I'd say the young girl who ends up, or the young boy who ends up leaving that village and has access to education needs to go back to that village to make sure that they create an enabling environment from people in that particular society. I mean, I made sure that I do that from the community that I lived in. I grew up in the township, and I still go there very regularly. I think at 9 or 10, or maybe 11, they ended up building a library just in front of my house. And I was fortunate enough to go to a multiracial sort of Model C school. And what I did was started a project with other learners that are not in the school that I'm in. I had a computer. I think I was the only one who had a computer in my whole street. And sometimes people wanted to update their CVs. These are people who are twice, 3 times my age. I knew how to do a CV by the 7th grade. I'd help them do their CV, used our printer at home and paper, did somebody's CV. And so already at a young age, as 9 and 10, I realized the value in helping somebody do a CV properly so that they can go get a job, of helping somebody learn how to use a computer because I was the only one who had it.
We're almost run out of time now. Esther, quickly.
Yes, I think there's a lot of capacity that we have in rural areas that we're not using because learning has become associated with English. And for me, I had a huge mind shift when my grandmother, she never went to school, she's lived in the village all her life, and I was singing a song, Infanti, and I guess I didn't get the words right, and she corrected me, and then she really taught me how to sing the whole song properly. And then another time, somebody's husband died and we went to visit. And my grandmother went through this process of, it was in a very public setting where she did it really beautifully, addressing the people who were gathered there. And I thought, wow, here is somebody who knows how to speak in public. Here is somebody who knows there's certain things that she knows how to do that are leadership skills, right? And yet, I had never thought of her as a teacher because, learning
in my mind, is English, right? And so